see if you can do that in a better way, but we're all learning. With no further ado, I would like to welcome our panelists on board. Thank you so much for joining today. Our board felt that really having a better understanding on what each and every one of your organizations is going through would help us make better decisions, take action, both from a board perspective and from a foundation perspective. And then we thought, well, our members would probably be ecstatic to learn more about our partners, and especially how our partners are behaving on a day-to-day basis, or how they're impacted on a day-to-day basis considering today's situation. So that's kind of the premise for today's meeting. Let's jump into our first question. So we'd like to learn a little bit about each of you, since some of you is the first time we're meeting, but for our older friends, we have new members in our club all the time, so it would be wonderful for them to learn a little bit about you. So let me start with a personal question. If you could each give us a little bit of information in regards to two things. One is your some personal information, and then professional background. So for example, if you want to share educational background, or something, your proudest achievement, or two things that you're most proud of. So really any kind of idea like that, feel free to share with us, and we'll kind of go round table. Joe, you're up first.
Thanks, Ari. Hello, everybody. Reporting in from beautiful Grand Junction, Colorado. My name is Joe Roos. I'm the founder and executive director for Hide in Plain Sight. I have a bachelor's degree from Medaille College in Buffalo, New York. I'd say my proudest achievement is the formation of Hide in Plain Sight after I took the service above self mantra from the Rotary Club and formed this organization in 2015. In April of 2014, I learned there were over 900 homeless students in the Douglas County School District in the year 2012 and 13. So on February 11th of 15, I formed a solutions-based 501c3 to raise money and provide scholarship so these kids could get a post-secondary education, become competitive in the job market, earn a living and sustainable wage, and break their cycle of homelessness. Now, two things I'm most proud of are actually people. I think of the Jerry Wilfords, the Tammy Fennells, the Jan and Jerry Salenfrans, and all the Highlands Ranch Rotarians helped build Hide in Plain Sight over the past 5 years with their personal and financial support. Secondly, it's all the scholarship recipients and how they've used our funds to get their education and better their lives. The Zoe Royers, who's now a Hide in Plain Sight board member, Kyle Gallup, Myra Rooney, Jessica Doris, and all the 227 students who've actually received our scholarships.
Wonderful. And first of all, of course, a big thank you for mentioning our members who've been a big part. I appreciate that. And a big shout out to our mantra, service above self. I appreciate that. June, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is June Everett, and I'm the president and founder of Backpack Society. I live in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, here with my husband and two boys who actually attend Thunder Ridge High School. I'm a Colorado native, born and raised in Rocky Ford, Colorado. And I have a degree in business administration from Metro State University. And my professional kind of day-to-day life is Backpack Society right now. I actually left my professional human resources career about 1.5 years ago in order to find another journey and another passion. And that's how Backpack Society was formed. My proudest achievement is, I grew up in a household that was very low income. Rocky Ford is a very low income community. And so probably my proudest achievement is breaking that poverty cycle. My parents didn't graduate high school. They had to leave school in order to help their families. And so for me to be able to succeed and break that cycle and now be able to give back to the community that I live in, that's probably my proudest moment right now.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sure.
Mike, you want to go next?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Foss with the Warrior Bonfire Program. First of all, I'd like to say, thank you to everybody in the Highlands Ranch Rotary. You might or might not know this, but the support we get from the Rotary Club is truly amazing, and without going through dollar figures and everything, but the club has supported to serve a lot of the Purple Heart veterans that we serve. But beyond that, we have folks in the Rotary that one is on our board of directors. We have some on our operations board. We've got a group that does nothing but touch base with all those we serve every quarter. And all that, it's just tremendous. Myself, I was born and raised in the Twin Cities. Jan Sellenfriend and I actually grew up in the same suburb of Minneapolis, St. Louis Park. So that's, we always get to talk about that. And I went to a small college in a small town in the middle of Kansas called Bethany College. Kind of weird for usually the kid from the small town goes to the big city like June. But no, I went from the big city to the small town. And I went there to play football and actually ended up playing football for a small college Hall of Fame football coach. Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, combat engineer. I won't list them all, but the Army sent me to 10 different states in 2 different countries. I would say my proudest achievement, there's 2 of them. One is my wife and I raised 3 amazing young adults that are all giving, hardworking. They're not your typical millennials, or at least what people say millennials are supposed to be like. They're great young adults. And my wife and I just celebrated our 33rd anniversary. I'd say that's more on her than me, because I probably did more stuff to not make that happen, and she did more stuff to make that happen. Those are my 2 proudest achievements, and thank you all for having us.
Wonderful.
Mike?
Yes,
Can
sir.
I ask Mike, for the club members who have heard of Warrior Bonfire, but not really sure what it is and what you do, would you spend a few minutes kind of outlining what the program is?
Sure. I thought that was going to be the next question.
It will be, yes.
You want me to hold on, Ari?
Okay.
Yeah, hold on to
No,
that.
that's fine. Okay, good.
Let me just say one thing. Thanks for wearing your Rotary shirt today. I also put mine on, so there you go.
I noticed you had it on.
There you go. I don't know who's calling me in the middle of this, but I'm going to decline them. Wonderful. So Joanne, am I pronouncing the name correctly?
Actually, it's Jonna.
Jonna, sorry, I
yes,
apologize.
That's okay. Everybody does it. So I tell people it's Donna with a J. So.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for joining. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you everyone for having me. I'm Jonna Busak, and I'm with Ronald McDonald House here in Denver. I handle our marketing and our corporate partnerships. So this month, I'm actually celebrating 13 years with Ronald McDonald House, because I believe in our mission that very much, and I really do love working there. But really, I've been with Ronald McDonald House for 15 years because prior to working there, I was the media director for the International, which was the PGA Tour golf tournament here in town. Maybe some of you remember that. And during that time, our staff volunteered to make a meal for the families at Ronald McDonald House. It's one of our largest volunteer programs. And from the moment I stepped in that house and met some of those families, I knew that that was something I wanted to continue to do. So I volunteered, signed up to continue volunteering, and did that. And during my time there, that's when the International unfortunately folded, and a job came open at Ronald McDonald House, which I took. So never regretted it for a minute, but I will tell you that my aha moment was one day I was sitting there at the front desk of Ronald McDonald House right after the International had folded, and in walked one of our salesmen who worked with me at the International. He was in Colorado Springs. His wife was pregnant at the time. She had complications with her pregnancy, and he found that he needed Ronald McDonald House. So seeing him sparked my light, and I thought this really is a charity for anyone. So
Wonderful.
I'm happy to be there. Finally, my proudest achievement is also my son, who's a senior in high school this year, so sort of having a rough time of things, but he's also a fine young man and something I'm very proud of.
Wonderful. So, Jonna, first of all, I love that story about how you kind of were introduced to your organization and how that started. If anybody wants to tag on to the next question, a few words or a sentence or two about how did that transition happen between their previous life or corporate life or whatever it was that triggered them into their nonprofit, those sometimes are wonderful stories. So feel free to, very often I should say, wonderful stories. So feel free to tag on that to the next question. So Dan, you're up.
Thank you. Hey, hi. Thanks for making this possible today. And Highlands Ranch Rotary been great partners of ours for a long, long time. Help and Hope Center, now formerly Douglas Elbert Task Force. So we really appreciate you guys very much. I was actually raised in Detroit. But like the bumper sticker says, got here as fast as I could. I've been a Highlands Ranch resident since the summer or the Christmas of 1994, and spent my career doing different kinds of things, all related to the nonprofit world. I spent 20 years in Youth for Christ here in Denver and around the country. Spent some time, 15 years, actually producing Christian comedy videos, which was different.
You got to send us one of those then. Now you've done it. Now you have to share.
Yeah, and then 3 years ago, this fall, was asked to come and head up the Help and Hope Center here in Castle Rock. I'd say proudest achievement, like the others. My wife of 36 years, she's put up with me, and 3 adult children who very proud of now. There were some times during the teenage years when maybe I wouldn't have as easily said that, but they come through that and they turn into great adults and members of society. So
wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. It sounds like your first achievement was actually your wife's achievement from the way you put it, but I'll enough said. Wonderful. Sure. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Our next question is transitioning to your organizations. But before we do that, I'd like to, got an SMS here from Bill. So I'd like to make a big shout out to Bill's dad, Jim, who joined us today for a second time, and Victor, who are visiting our club meeting, although this is an unofficial club meeting today with less formalities. So I'd like to say thank you for joining today. I appreciate that. So jumping to our next question, we want to kind of split this meeting into 2 kind of stages. The one is the pre-COVID-19 and then the post-COVID-19. So this first question is about pre-COVID-19. So what was your organization's mission day-to-day? If you want to tag on also kind of how you got into the nonprofit, kind of your genesis story, so to speak, everything that you want to share in under 90 seconds about life before COVID-19. Joe, you're up.
Thanks, Ari. So let's go back to 1988. My church was destroyed by an arsonist. Oh. And I would go to mass every morning, and all of a sudden Father called up a bunch of us and said, we need to rebuild our church. Would you help us find a capital campaign corporation? So that was the beginning of my fundraising career. So I always tell people, be careful what you volunteer for. It may actually lead to a life of wonderful pleasure and meeting a bunch of people. So that was the seminal moment, if you will, in my fundraising career. And that was back in the late 1980s. The mission of Hide in Plain Sight is very simple. We're all about breaking the cycle of homelessness and poverty through education. Now, we had a board member who was an attorney, and he said education is kind of a key word because it isn't just sending students to school, it really is educating the publics. And so for the first year, I spent a lot of time just telling people that, hey, did you know in Douglas County we have so many homeless students, but you can't see them. So last year, pre-COVID, the organization was in its 5th year, and what I decided to do was take a business model, and we wanted to storm our organization as it was get into reforming it and setting new norms so that it could be sustainable. So I restaffed our board of directors last year and increased our board of directors membership from 5 to 8. We formed a 3-member board of trustees whose mission is to make sure the mission of this organization never ever changes, and that the board of directors does their due diligence with governance, policy making, fiscal responsibility, and evaluation of the executive director. We created a strategic plan whose primary objective was to hire a professional fundraiser by the third quarter of 2020. We were very successful because our professional fundraiser is going to be our Chief Business Development Officer. She starts tomorrow. Her name is Amy Farnan. So be on the lookout for Amy. She is a 19-year professional, most recently with Craig Hospital. And then from our College to Homeless scholarship program and our K-12 Robin Hood program, our stats showed that there were 411 students that we helped last year with about $145,000 in donations from last July through this past month. So that's, I think, maybe the best way I can answer that question, Ari.
Wonderful. I mean, that's amazing. When I first heard about Hide in Plain Sight, I was shocked. Why would we have homeless children in Highlands Ranch? That just sounded weird to me. So that's amazing.
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
The main reason is single income families.
Mm.
So if you think about separation, divorce, death, job loss, I mean, what are we talking about right now? All these situations, when I was growing up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom and my dad brought in the income. But today, so many families, because of the cost of living, what does it cost to buy a house? What does it cost to rent? So it's, in fact, it's pretty easy. In fact, many of my Highlands Ranch Rotarians have heard me say this before. There's over 24,000 homeless students in primary schools in this state alone. So it really is an issue. And Dan, I used to work at the organization Dan now heads, and it was really kind of a seminal moment for me finding out when I worked there. I think at that point in time, Dan, 40% of the people you guys help were students or kids.
Wonderful, thank you. So same question, June, you're up.
Great, thank you. So we are fairly new, still kind of in our infant stages of our organization. We were actually founded in September of 2019, and we didn't start communications with schools until January of 2020. We wanted to make sure we had all of our ducks in a row. We got our 501(c) nonprofit status. In January, we started talking with Thunder Ridge, and we really wanted to take it slow. You know, we had our mission. Our mission is to make hunger-free weekends in Douglas County for school children a reality. And so we wanted to provide additional meals for them on the weekend. And so, you know, our first steps were to talk to the school. Is there a need? Really understand what we could do. And our goal was to kick off a pilot program at Thunder Ridge for 20 students, March 27th. So the week kids got back from spring break, we were going to roll out our program for the last quarter of the school year. So we could learn, taking it slow, and then really kick off in the fall of 2020. However, you know, COVID kind of has changed all of that. And I can talk more about what we're doing today because we have kicked off and we're doing a lot more than what our initial goal was. But the reason I chose that mission was, you know, I volunteered at my boys' school when they were younger. Never thought it was an issue in Douglas County, you know. It's completely not like Rocky Ford, not where I grew up. It's not visible. But when you're in the classroom and you see that the teachers are saving food aside for kids, or they're buying extra snacks because they know which kids need that help, it was clearly an issue. And back at that time, it was not anything that I could really address on a large scale because we were, you know, two working parents trying to make it work for our family. But now that I'm in a much better place and I'm able to give back to the community, that was my focus. Plus, I was one of those kids on the free and reduced lunch program, and I know how it is. And so that's kind of where the idea sparked. It's kind of always been in the back of my head, and we really wanted to roll out. But as I mentioned, COVID really kind of slowed us down in our initial goal. But we've changed and we've shifted to do other things.
Wonderful. And that's actually going to be our next question, learning more about how COVID has changed life. Mike, go ahead.
Well, how I kind of got started working in the nonprofit world was two things. One, you know, when my oldest son was in second grade, he wanted to join Cub Scouts and they needed a den leader. And so I volunteered to do that. And also when my middle kid, my oldest boy was in second grade, he decided he wanted to play football. So, I volunteered to help coach. And then all of a sudden, I'm the president of the Panther Youth Sports Organization, which is the Littleton Youth Sports Organization today. And then I got roped into being the, president of the Arapahoe High School Quarterback Club. So there's all my fundraising skills right there. Amazing that how little the schools fund sports. The high schools do. And then in 2013, the Warrior Bonfire Program, which I'll tell you about in a second, was formed. The founder is an old Army buddy of mine, Dan Fordyce, Mike Foss, Dan Fordyce. We were always right next to each other because the Army did everything alphabetically. And when he founded the organization, he asked me to be on the initial board of directors. And what the Warrior Bonfire Program does is we serve Purple Heart recipients, those combat wounded warriors injured at the hand of the enemy. And we serve them on their lifelong journey of healing through activity-based, therapeutic, and camaraderie building events. And what we call these events is bonfire retreats. We take groups of 6 at a time on trips around the country. And the idea is we want to show them a good time, get them in the great outdoors because there's healing in the great outdoors. But all the hard work, the stuff that's important, they do themselves. They create a bond that just kind of instantaneously happens and then help each other and guide each other. And what we've learned is that folks that have been through traumatic experiences can only truly open up to someone that's been through a similar experience. And what's more traumatic than war every day for a year at a shot? Right. And so most of these guys have post-traumatic stress, and the biggest thing that they can do is open up and talk about things. And so we're building great support networks. And how we do that is through our bonfire retreats, those 6-day event or 6-person events. Usually they're about 5 days. And then we do all smaller things, little campfires to just get the guys together, spouses and couples bonfire retreats. And then we conduct a thing called Jammin' at the Bonfire, where we have bands that go into play in VA hospitals once a month. But our main focus is really helping folks transform their lives, build community relationships, and mental healing.
Wonderful.
And I kind of looked at this prior to COVID a little different. In the first 4 months of 2019, we conducted 8 bonfire retreats, 8 jamming at the bonfires, 2 campfires, our largest annual fundraiser, and 2 small fundraisers. In this year, and I'll tell you in a little bit, but it's not even close to that. So our guys need help.
I have a question, Mike. So I think,
Sure.
In Joe's case or June and Dan, we kind of understand in the absence of food, people starve. I think it's a little less clear what happens in the absence of the activity that your organization does. What is the bad situation, basically?
Well, we are, and these numbers that I'll present you is about 100, because we just started this survey monkey, anonymous survey monkey of those we serve. And 60% of these guys feel more isolated. And isolation for someone that's, used to being outdoors, used to doing things, used to having folks to talk to about their issues, that's a lot. 62% of them feel more anxious about their future. 67% have experienced more problems with their post-traumatic stress, their traumatic brain injury, and any other kind of mental health issues they have. 44% feel more depressed, and 78% say, as soon as this opens up, we need to get on a bonfire retreat.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You betcha.
Jonna, you're up next.
Okay, great. So Ronald McDonald House is really a home away from home for families who have traveled to Denver to get medical treatment for their children. So while they're here seeking the medical treatment, they're welcome to stay at Ronald McDonald House for as long as their child's being treated, and at no cost to them. So we like to say that we are their soft bed and their hot shower and their homemade meal while they're here. But really, we're so much more than that. We surround these families with caring volunteers and a staff that understands what they're going through, and with families that are in a very similar situation. So within our walls, they find a support group and truly a home away from home. We've got 2 homes, one in Denver and one in Aurora. And between those 2 houses, we're able to help 118 families every night. And they really do bond with each other. And you'll see things when you walk into our house that you would see in your own home. So people are working on puzzles, or children are playing together before they go take their bath for the night and then hit the sack. So before COVID, 118 families, as I said, were generally there almost every night. We usually run at about 90% occupancy. And then obviously COVID changed a lot of things, which I'm happy to talk about next time.
Wonderful, thank you. So Dan, tell us about your side.
Yeah, so Help and Hope Center, I like to say, is an emergency room for people who are struggling financially and at risk of homelessness. Our job is to get them through the crisis, and then if they need longer term help, we help them find those resources. We were started in 1984 here in Castle Rock by a group of ladies from local churches. They started in a garage, and it grew from there to where we are now. Last year, we served 20,400 individuals. That's been going up about 10% a year since I came. And I'm with you. Before I came here, I had no inkling that there was that kind of need in Douglas County, right? We're routinely like the 8th richest county in the country. But as Joe said, the cost of living here is a huge driving factor in those needs. So any crisis, any little thing that comes along, a loss of a job or an illness or a divorce or all those different things, all of a sudden people are in trouble and need help. So our main service is a food bank. We give folks enough groceries for whatever size their family is for at least a week. Usually it's more like 2.5 weeks worth. And then we also offer financial assistance for when they have utility shut off, or people with eviction notices. We work directly with utility companies and directly with landlords to keep those folks with the heat on and in their homes. That's it in a nutshell. We also run a thrift store, a large thrift store that also can provide folks with clothing and household items and that sort of thing.
Wonderful, thank you. John, do you have a question to ask anyone specific, or maybe to the roundtable before we move to the next stage, talking about what life looks like post COVID-19?
I'd like to back up, and I saw on the Q&A, Kevin Meiser had a question. I'm not sure who it was for. The question was, how does that differ from the Food for Thought program? let's clear up that before we move on.
Yeah. So, Kevin, I'm assuming that the discussion, that food for thought, and please feel free to give more information in the chat. I'm assuming that, is that another food bank, or is it another organization like that? So it sounds like there's another organization out there. We just don't know too much about it. So if you put some more information in the chat, then we can kind of
I
talk
can help
through
you
that.
with that.
Sure, go ahead, Dan.
Food for Thought is also a backpack meals program for students.
Okay.
A lot of food banks
Like
around
June's
the area run programs like that, and deliver weekend meals to families of students who are struggling.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
So I guess that question was towards you, June. Were you aware
Yes.
of that team, or maybe just off your radar?
You know, when I did my research, I was aware that there were a few other organizations doing backpack programs, such as the Parker Task Force as well, but their focus was strictly on homeless students, where ours is open to pretty much any student. I mean, we are focusing on those that are low income, but if there are some students that are identified by counselors or teachers, we're open to helping those kiddos as well.
Wonderful.
Are there any geographic differences of what the two organizations or different organizations do?
So
Dan?
yeah, so C-Corps in Parker Task Force, we do it here at Help and Hope Center. C-Corps helps in Douglas and Elbert counties, and also in Arapahoe County. Parker Task Force focuses pretty much on Parker. We're serving some students here in Douglas County and also in Elbert County. We try not to overlap. We work with the school counselors and get requests basically through schools to help their students. I know our program is not strictly for homeless students. It's for any kids, families who are having food insecurity. I believe C-Corps is the same. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of kids in Douglas County whose families struggle to have good, nutritious meals on the weekends. And so there's plenty of room for for all of us to do those things.
Good. Okay.
Wonderful. And a big shout out to Kevin, who was the first to figure out how to use the Q&A. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Kevin. And now that I've figured it out, all you need to do is click on the Q&A button at the bottom, and I think you can basically open a new question through that tab over there. So just play with it and you'll figure it out. A few more questions coming in. I'm going to let you all kind of put those questions in. I see people are slowly figuring that out, so that's wonderful. But I'm going to jump to the next question, and we'll kind of come back to audience questions towards the end. So what does life look like now? And how is your community that you're serving being impacted by COVID? So Rotary is, we're all about feet on the ground, right? We couldn't even meet. How is this manifested in problems and issues, and how have you overcome those issues? Joe, go ahead.
The Hide in Plain Sight organization, our board of trustees, our board of directors, and myself, we look at this pandemic as certainly, maybe hopefully once in a lifetime situation. And I guess you can look at it a couple of different ways. And we've decided to take a look at it as an opportunity, both to look at who we're serving and how we're serving them. But also, and I think most importantly as we go forward, this organization does not exist without the support of businesses, corporations, service organizations, and individuals. And so a moment of epiphany for me was when we decided to lean in and hire Amy Farnan as our Chief Business Development Officer. Do we stay or do we go? I asked her, what does your first 90 days look like? And she says, we need to reach out to our donors and we need to see what situation they're in. So that's really going to be our focus for the next probably 6 to 10 months. is really to basically conduct a feasibility study. We're going to reach out to our donors and meet with them. We're going to find out, what their life looks like right now, and then hopefully care for them and let them know what we're doing, so that when the time does come and things get back to or become the new normal, we're still in their mindset. Our gala, which has been annually in the fall, we moved that to next spring, 2021. We're not sure, what things are going to look like. I can tell you that I've done 4 Rotary presentations by Zoom in the last week. So I don't get the handshakes or the hugs or that type of a thing, but I'm actually not having to leave my office here to go out and reach out to people who are interested in the organization. Organization, as we go forward, more meetings will be done virtually. Our communications committee has been strengthened with new volunteers with communications and education background. That's going to be a strong point for us as we go forward to find out how do we communicate and what messages do we send forth. The board of directors has become very active. We've, as I mentioned, this storming, forming, norming phase I'm taking them through. They've been assigned different committees, and we're going to revisit our mission. Are we true to our mission, in our past 5 years? And then what do we expect of our students from a scholarship criteria, and what should they expect from us? And then a topic that's come up recently that's we're going to deal with in our own way is, if we're given donations by the medical or by the marijuana industry, what's our policy? Do we accept them? Do we not accept them? So these are some of the things that have been going on. And then finally, this late this summer, when the board decides on all these different issues, we're going to have a new training program for our student interview volunteers who actually recommend the scholarships to our board of directors. Challenges, I think, is part of the question, what we see forward. Certainly the number one is the big E, the economy. Where's it going to go? And that's going to drive a lot of things. Donor psyche post-pandemic. We don't know how people are going to think about supporting, what their means are going to be, and even if they can, are they going to want to invest, and where do they want to invest their dollars? And then just continuing to work towards making this organization sustainable. I may have started it, and we've got a great team around us, but if I go down or something happens, how do we keep this momentum going? And so that's one of the reasons we brought on Amy, to help build an internal structure of resources so that it can go on even without me. So I hope that answers the question, Harry.
Wonderful, thank you. June, go ahead.
Great, thank you. So with COVID really putting a halt in our rollout of our pilot program, we have food and we are ready to go with our pilot program. But now we didn't have the school as our vehicle to get this to the kids. And so what we did is we shifted our focus. We said, you know what, now the kids are not only going to be missing this 6 meals on the weekend, they're going to be missing the meals that they are expecting to get normally at school, but now school is closed. And so now we have a little bit of a bigger issue that we want to try to help with. And so we shifted our focus to not just weekend food, but also to help during the week, and also opened it up to help their family as a whole. So we created a website page on our website where families all across Douglas, not with Thunder Ridge that we're partnering with, we actually opened it to all Douglas County schools for their families to sign up. And we have pickup and delivery options to be able to get this food to those that are in need. The way that we have been functioning is through donations. We've been doing porch pickups, picking up donations from anybody who has items that they want to donate. We were also, because we were just starting, we were running this program out of my 3-car garage. We outgrew that really, really fast because the need is there much quicker than we had expected. We are so grateful that just 2 weeks ago, we were able to get into a warehouse space, which is donated to us at a really, really low rate. So we could actually house more items and be able to serve more families. So since March 27th, with just word of mouth, social media, and the high school Thunder Ridge helping us get the word out, we've served over 2,000 meals to families in Douglas County. And again, we're brand new, so people don't really even know who we are or why are you called Backpack Society, but yet you're giving meals for a whole family. And it's because we had to shift gears. COVID really threw that wrench at us, and we caught it, and we did what we had to do to get the meals to the kids. So that's kind of what we're doing. But I think we're going to continue this program through the summer. It was something we had planned to do next summer, was to continue the meal program through the summer for the kids that, they're missing, again, those meals that they would normally get at school. But rather than baby step it, we're full sprinting right now. And, it just really made us move a lot quicker than we anticipated. But we're handling it. We still have our goals in mind for fall 2020. We do have a food rescue program that we're going to be implementing in some of the elementary schools, which is where we are saving some of that unopened food that normally would go to the trash, and we're recycling that into our backpack program. So that food will actually stay right here in the school, going back to some of the kids that really, really need it. And so that's part of our goal as well. Our volunteer program to help us stuff the backpacks and get the meals ready to hand out. That's we're reserving that for high school students who need those service hours to graduate. Again, this is all looking at the fall of 2020.
Wonderful.
And we've had some great partnerships, as Joe mentioned, really leaning on the community partnerships to kind of help us achieve our mission. It's been great. We've had Douglas County Human Services reach out and say, hey, once you guys get going, can we give you a flyer to put in that tells them all about the different services, the SNAP program and different things that families could use.
Wonderful.
And yeah.
June, we're nearing towards the end of at least our plan session, so I'm going to say thank you for your answer at this stage. I appreciate that very much, and I must say that's amazing progress considering, what you've done, and in the crisis, that's just incredible.
Thanks.
Jonna, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So the one thing that has not changed in the COVID pandemic is that kids are still sick, and for different reasons than COVID. So we're still seeing lots of families who have kids that are hospitalized for cancer treatments or organ transplants or eating disorders or complicated pregnancies. So still the need is very much there. Unfortunately, we've had to shut down all of our shared spaces within the house. So families are really kind of confined to their rooms now. Laundry rooms are open and kitchens, of course, so they can come and get something to eat. But there's no gathering now, which has removed really that support system from within our houses and made them feel much different than they were, for sure. We're seeing fewer numbers now because we've had to stop letting new families in. So once somebody gets released from the hospital and goes home, then their room stays empty. So normally we were seeing 118 families a day. Today we have 30 families there. So much fewer number. And then the other thing that we've had to stop, which has made the biggest difference to us, is all the volunteer activity. So no volunteers in or out, which means no volunteer provided meals for families. And that's been very difficult because we still prioritize feeding our families and removing one worry from their plate by providing them with a hot meal. So we've really been reaching out to the community because, of course, we had no budget for this, and asking for gifts for people to cater meals, to pay to cater meals, that is, so that we can have food brought in for our families to eat. And we've had success with that, and are very pleased with that. But as I said, none of that was budgeted for. So like all of you sitting here today, our giving is down, and we can foresee that that really is going to be a problem in the months ahead. So giving is going to be the #1 thing that people can do for us, probably like all of you.
Wonderful. And I love the question, the additional question you answered. So I'd love everybody else to also say maybe a sentence about that. What is the #1 thing that you actually need in light of these new times? Dan, take it away.
Okay, so previous to COVID, we were just doing our normal thing, 20 to 30 families a day, and and everything was good. About the middle of March, our food supply sort of disappeared due to the store shortages. We pick up groceries from, about 14 area establishments, King Soopers, Sam's Club, like that. A normal Sam's Club pickup would be 2, 3, 4 pallets of food, and it went down to 0 on some days. King Super's kind of the same way. That has since rebounded a little bit, but it's we take whatever they give us, but a lot of times it's way more bread, or way more cake, or way more stuff than, so meat, dairy, all those kind of staples are still, we're still struggling to get those. We've in the last 6 weeks, we've doubled, more than doubled our food purchasing through Food Bank of the Rockies. But Food Bank of the Rockies also relies on the big chains for their donations, and so they've been their supply chain has been hit as well. So that's been hard, but we're finding some creative ways to find some other sources. We've had some restaurants step up and give us some things. We've had some churches go to local restaurants and actually purchase frozen meals, have restaurants make up frozen meals, and then the church purchases those to help the restaurant, and then delivers those to us to help us. And that was a very cool,
Wonderful,
very cool thing. Like Jana said, our volunteer crew has pretty much disappeared. Most of them are in the high risk group of over age 65, and they've had to stay home. So we've been working on a skeleton crew. Typically, clients would shop in the food bank for their own items. We're doing drive-through now, where we pack up their food for them and take it out to their vehicles. We're doing all of our appointments over the phone. The store's been closed since the middle of March, so we're adjusting to a new level of craziness, and hoping that it goes away soon. I'd say the main thing right now for us is cash donations. We love to get grocery donations, but if somebody can give the same amount of cash that they would have spent at the grocery store for us, we can triple, quadruple the amount of food we can get for that. So
wonderful.
We're never turning any food donations away. I'm even scouring the farm areas for ranchers who might be willing to donate cows.
Wow.
So that's kind of where that's what it's like right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan. Mike, you're up next.
Well, things have changed tremendously for us as well. I mean, one of the things is we typically take guys across the country. We don't really like to take a guy from Colorado and take him to Colorado. So we fly folks, and we can't be flying anybody today. So we have canceled 4 bonfire trips, 8 jamming at the bonfires, and 2 campfires, which is serving approximately 30 folks. And we've also had to cancel our largest fundraiser, which is typically a quarter of our revenue that comes in every year, and then 1 small fundraiser. What was canceled? What we've been doing, on the other hand, of trying to serve folks, is these groups of 6, they create a bond, and that bond sticks. And so we have done group texting, putting all these guys in a group text, and so they're communicating with each other. We've also done a few virtual meetings with them. We had one last Friday, lasted an hour and a half. So we're at least getting them together and at least talking. It's hard to really truly open up to somebody when you're sitting on something like this or you're in a text, but at least you can communicate, joke around, and then there's telephone calls that happen after that. And just like everybody else out here, funds are low, and we're trying to squeeze everything we got to save up. If like those numbers I told you about, if 78% either need or are in extreme need of going on a bonfire trip, that's 78%. That's about 240 folks. At 1,000 at a shot, that's $240,000. And we're not going to be able to serve all those folks as quickly as they need it. But we're planning to things. We're planning extra trips to try and fill in the gaps. And for instance, we have a trip that we haven't decided on this. This is our next one that's available. End of June or end of July, May, beginning of June, at a ranch in the middle of South Dakota, which they have nothing COVID. She said it's 75 miles to the nearest case, or 90 miles. And so what we might do is, just rent a car and load up a bunch of people from the front range and drive up there. Haven't decided yet what we're going to do, but we've all got this whole group, and everybody's got those that we need to serve, and I can't tell you I know all these folks, and all these folks don't know me, but we're all going to do the best we can to serve those that we got to serve.
Right.
Because that's why we exist.
Very, very true. Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. One more question to you, Mike. So what's is the answer to, what's the best thing, how you can be helped? What's your biggest ask right now?
Well, obviously our biggest ask is always cash. But if we can't get on airplanes yet, and we got somebody, and if somebody's willing to drive somebody, we've got the next trip after that is a couple's or a spouse's trip in Florida, but we've got one in Colorado, and the military committee has already been talking about this, but if somebody can help, pick up 2 guys in Colorado Springs and bring them up, if that's who we get to go on the trip.
Wonderful. Perfect. So we actually planned the session until 45, but unofficially we'll extend it until 1 o'clock. Let's do a lightning round, and basically some of you or most of you have prepared a question, and the question is, my question is, what question did I not ask that that you would have wanted me to ask you? And what I'm going to ask is that each of you, who has a question, asks that question and then answers it himself. And with that, we'll wrap up the session. If anybody is able to continue after 1 o'clock, then we might continue for a few minutes after that. But let's try and do a lightning round, basically in 4 or 5 minutes. Joe, go ahead.
Thanks, Ari. One of the things to mention is that the question would be, how has Hide in Plain Sight made a difference during the COVID period of time? And so 3 things. We've given away $15,000 in King Soopers gift cards at $100 each to 150 highest at-risk food insecure families in the Douglas County School District. We've given away $10,000 in Chrome tablets because education is different today. Kids cannot go to class. They have to be online. And so if you're living in a hotel or you don't have internet service, we've worked with the Douglas County School District Foundation to provide Chrome tablets. I think the number is probably 30 or 40 of those. What I want to do is, if I could take 1 minute and read a story. We've given away 1 post-secondary scholarship right now, and this kind of highlights the need in our collegiate level. So this is a recommendation to our board from last month. Alyssa is a 3rd-year biology major at MSU with aspirations of becoming an ER physician in the future. Well, we could use her today, huh? This hardworking young woman is a full-time student and up to a few weeks ago was working 3 part-time jobs, including childcare, construction, and hazmat service positions to make ends meet. Alyssa is a student leader, serving as vice president of her biology club and community volunteer, believing in the importance of giving back to her community. Alyssa is no stranger to financial struggle, living most of her life in poverty. She is determined to break that cycle moving forward. She feels a great sense of responsibility for her parents and grandparents who struggle with a variety of medical and social challenges. She reports a good circle of friends through her school and competitive rugby community, and is living alone in student housing near the Auraria campus. Alyssa made just over $6,000 last year, working 3 different jobs. With COVID-19, all sources of income have been suspended. She shared she is selling personal belongings at this time and accessing the local food bank in anticipation of running out of money. So last month, we awarded Alyssa a $3,000 scholarship for the remainder of the 2019-20 academic year, and we're encouraging her to reach out to us in the fall of this year. One thing I want my board, my friends at the Rotary to know is that fiscally we're very responsible, and while we've been in preparation for a lot of things, we are in a very good position financially where we're going to be giving away at least $100,000 in scholarship between now and next June. That doesn't mean we don't need donations, but our program is going to be continuing because of the great fiscal responsibility by our board of directors. Right. And thanks again for this opportunity. And you know, every one of us, this is a cash business. The greatest need, I think, and I hope all my colleagues on this panel will share with us, maybe the greatest thing we need is everybody in this Rotary Club to tell their friends and family about these organizations, because raising awareness really helps our causes. Thank you.
Absolutely. And in fairness, Joe, a big part of why we're doing this session is exactly this. It's communication, awareness, and we're going to be leveraging this into the Facebook. And we're going to be hoping that whoever has not seen this today will see the recording, which will also be made available. So I, you know, as the communications officer for our club, I must reiterate that that's a core part of our mission, bringing awareness to a Rotary Club. But I think the best way to do that is to actually bring awareness to our partners and understand that, you know, we're really serving you guys and you guys are serving the community. Wonderful. June, rock and roll.
Awesome, thank you. I think the question that I would have asked is, you know, why did you choose to focus on Douglas County? As I mentioned, I came from a county that's really, really low income. And I've been hearing that a lot actually since we rolled out. Why are you choosing Douglas County? And I think Joe mentioned it earlier, Douglas County is one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. So why focus your efforts here? And quite honestly, when we started to roll out, we were fortunate enough to have 9 News come do a little piece on us about what we were going to do and how we were going to roll out. And I got a few comments from folks saying, why aren't you focusing on Aurora or Denver? You know, they have a need, it's visible, Douglas County doesn't need it. And I think that's exactly why. Douglas County, when you really look at the numbers and you see out of all Douglas County schools, over 11.5% of the kids are on free or reduced lunch program. I mean, that's huge. And poverty is not something that is visible, especially here. You know, some people think poverty, they think of rundown houses or kids in raggedy clothes. You don't see that here. And so it's very, very hidden, but it exists. And speaking to schools to see if this is a program that would benefit their school, they're all kind of raising their hands and saying, yes, yes, please, we can use this. As I mentioned, so many teachers are buying food on their own to help. And oh, wow. So I think that this is, I mean, I'm so glad to hear about the other organizations that are doing similar things. The more, the better. You know, we're here to help those kids with food insecurity. And that's the reason I chose Douglas County. It's my community. It's where my kids go to school. It's where I live. And I want to help make that community better.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, June, for sharing. Jana, you're up.
So the question that I think I would have liked asked, and everybody on the panel can answer this one too, but just, are you a part of Giving Tuesday Now, which is a global day of giving scheduled for next Tuesday, May 5th. So it's, you know, nonprofits around the world are doing a push to ask people, much like we do Colorado Gives Day here. This is one that was designed in response to the need from COVID-19. So for Ronald McDonald House, the answer is yes, we're definitely part of that. And I would encourage folks to take a look at that. You can go to their website, which is givingtuesday.org, or you can come to our website and at rmhc-denver.org. Take a peek at what it's all about, and take a minute to give a little cash if you've got it to a nonprofit that means something to you. Ronald McDonald House is absolutely part of that movement, and I would suspect that the rest of us are as well.
Wonderful. Dan, I think, did you want to pass, or did you want to say something?
I would just say,
feel free to also just say any final words that you like if you don't want to ask a specific question.
Rather than a question, I would just say that, economically, we're just at the beginning of this, the fallout for this. And so all of us are going to be dependent on people really being generous and opening up their wallets in a sacrificial way. I mean, that's really what it's going to take to get through all of this in the long term. So I appreciate this panel and this chance to talk to everyone, and stay healthy.
Thank you, Dan. And yeah, honestly, what scares me is that, when we get after this huge crisis, which is COVID-19, or at least we form a new normal, is an economic crisis going to follow? So we might be, from the fryer into the frying pan or into the fire, however that expression goes. Mike, help us wrap up.
Well, I'd like to make a comment instead of a question that I would have liked to see heard. All these organizations on here do wonderful work. At the time of this crisis that we're going through right now, the other 4 organizations are working towards serving people's immediate needs. And we understand that. We fully understand that as a Warrior Bonfire Program. But I ask people to just remember that the people that the Warrior Bonfire Program serves were wounded and injured in their service to us all.
Right.
And that's why we put to serve Purple Heart recipients, because those are people that were wounded in their service to everyone. But Ari, John, thank you very much.
Wonderful. So we're out of time for today. So I probably a lot of our audience is going to drop off, although we actually still have 36. I think we had 40 something, excluding the panelists, so about 50 people online with us today. But I'd like to say thank you to those of us who need to drop off. And I know that there is actually a foundation meeting starting right now. So I've actually opened that meeting up in parallel on my phone. But I'd like to, just in honor of the people who joined today and asked a few questions, if you all can stay on, and those of the audience who can't stay on, I want to run through those very quickly. So I want to bring a big shout out to Reen, who has been making masks. And I'm a little scared that I can't pull her on due to resource constraints. My whole computer froze a second ago, so I'm being careful. But Reen has been making masks. She'll talk about that more in our next meeting. So a big thank you and shout out to Reen. And I think she actually already dropped off. So please convey this to her later if you need a mask. We had a question from Coney. And feel free to just unmute yourself, everyone. We're going to try a fish market approach here. We had a question here from Coney. Mike, do you need more volunteers to call our Purple Heart quarterly? So maybe if there's any digital activities, Mike, that you need, then feel free to to talk about that. And I think we might have lost Mike due to the time. There he is. We had a question here. Go ahead, Mike. You want to say something?
I heard you. I just had to walk across the room, and I didn't want to leave the thing blank.
No worries.
We could use extra people to help make the Purple Heart calls that we do. And there's 5 folks from the Rotary Club that could do that, Connie. The one thing that we need to have, though, is we would like those people to be veterans.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. And the reason we want them veterans is so that there's more of a trust issue.
Right. Wonderful. the last question we had was about the schools. Are the schools still interacting, considering that they're shut down?
If I can take that, I talked to Assistant Superintendent Ted Knight last week regarding our Chrome program, and the schools are operating, but every building is shut down, locked down. Principals and teachers cannot access the facilities. They're not even able to get their mail unless they go to the post office. But there is communication, obviously, through Zoom and those types of things. So that's what I know. June, I'll throw it over to you and see what you've been learning. I know we've worked with several principals in particular with our King Supers and Chrome program, just so we can identify the population we want to serve. So, June?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they are reaching out, but it's actually more in response from us. We're actually reaching out to them and saying, hey, how can we help? They are very busy, obviously, with everything going on with virtual classrooms and things happening. But when they do get requests, if families are reaching out, they are sharing our information and other resources as well that are available within the school district. But the relationships that I have with counselors at some of our neighborhood schools, they're definitely reaching out. We have not grown to the point where we know everybody in the district, but the immediate schools that we had planned to roll out to, they're absolutely, whenever there's a need, they'll reach out.
If I can add on to that, Ari, for a second. I believe right now there are only 3 sites that the school district has in the Douglas County system where students can go and get meals. And as June pointed out, there's probably at least 6,000 students on a daily basis who receive free or reduced meals. I can tell you, and Jerry Wilford will back me up on this, because when we first started Hide in Plain Sight, we visited the Food Bank of the Rockies. And this, I'm just saying this in perspective, because Dan will attest to this, as will Secor and Parker Task Force. Douglas County, a couple of years ago, was the 3rd largest need to be met by the Food Bank of the Rockies. There just wasn't enough support in the area. So while we think we're doing just fine and everybody is hunky-dory, the need for our students as far as food insecurities and food banks in particular during this time. You know, Dan, you were probably going to be going dry in the next month or 2 anyways, because the summer times are a bad time. So getting food to the families through the task force, or Help and Hope, forgive me, and through June's organization and everybody else, it's a daily need.
And I'll just mention too, I've been on a call twice a week with Douglas County Emergency Preparedness, all of that, and other food banks. And the gal who does is the homeless liaison for Douglas County Schools is on that call as well. And she has said that it's a struggle now virtually to be in touch with the families and to sort of check in on them and know how they're doing. So she feels like, and I think I don't mean to speak for her, but I think she feels like some of those kids are falling through the cracks right now because they're not in face-to-face contact with them anymore, and it's hard to get in touch with them offline and that sort of thing. So it's definitely a struggle.
Wonderful. So I apologize, I was a little distracted towards the last 2 minutes. I just opened up the foundation meeting, and I'll definitely reiterate, if anybody, so foundation, just so you all know, is our financial organization that actually orchestrates the giving with the board and with the club. So if anybody from the foundation actually wasn't on this meeting today, then I'll send them the recording so they can rewatch this. This is, I think, wonderful information to help our foundation understand, what our partners are going through. So I'll be jumping on that foundation in just a minute there. But I wanted to say a big thank you to, not just for joining today, that's a given, but for all the amazing work that all of you are doing with the community. I'm just inspired, as I am sure our club will be. We dropped off to 22 participants just because we've passed the hour, but this recording will be available to the club. And please, reach out to me, and I'll be reaching out to each of you, so our club can also promote you through our Facebook page. And I do have a little bit of a budget, so some of that promotion will actually be paid. So we're going to try and help you guys and ladies, any way we can. Wonderful. So John, you want to wrap us up with some final remarks?
Yeah, I have two things that I'd like to announce. We try to let people, the club, know who family members have been ill or something. And there's a fellow named Joe Magafin who's in the Sunrise group, and he recently lost his mother to the COVID-19. So anybody who knows Joe, reach out to him and give them condolences. The other announcement really is that unfortunately there will be no peach sales this year because the peach sale in the peaches in the Palisades were pretty much wiped out. Oh, the RILA funding, we'll look for other sources, but we won't have any Colorado peaches this year. And that's all I really have. So Foundation me if I can find the link. I haven't found it on my Apple yet, but maybe I'll find it through the PC. But I'm going to leave you, Ari. I wish everyone a foundation, and again, the foundation will be certainly for funding from all of you. So all nice to have you as a format is going to be very successful as we go forward. Nothing wrong with getting together like this in addition to in-person meetings.